Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
Oh, that's right.
It's afternoon for you, man. It's 1 o'clock. And hey, we're used to doing this in the morning. We're also used to doing this on Mondays and Thursdays. So bear with us. We've had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Today is November 27th, 2020. It's a Friday. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 429. Is that correct?
I think so. That's what I got written down here. Yeah,
I think it's 29. So we appreciate you tuning in. We hope all of you had a absolutely fantastic Thanksgiving. How was yours, Mike?
Well, it was
subpar.
Well, it was interesting. We actually ended up immediate family only because of various reasons that are out in the public. It seems these days.
Mom and Chris, is that who it was?
Yeah, and my niece Kate was here, so
nice.
It was just the four of us. So it was nice. No, don't get me wrong, but we had plans, and they got
squashed.
Squashed.
They got squashed. Yeah, we had how was the weather? Was it good for you? I mean, you're up in Wisconsin. I'm here in Chattanooga. We're usually doing this together in our podcast room here at the Hub. Did you guys get some snow from what I hear?
We got snow the other day, but no, it didn't snow. There's no snow now, but it's in the 30s. It's like, well, upper 30s now, but my brother's here. I got to give him credit. He's been out riding every morning
in the 30s?
Yeah.
Dude, Chris, he's only doing that to show you up. You know that, right?
Oh, and it's working.
It's working. It's I need to come back here. I'm gonna walk in Monday morning. You're gonna be having spent 3 hours on the watt bike pushing the power.
Oh, that's true. I've got this whole thing going on now, right? Wow. As soon as I get back, it's kind of like my New Year starts Monday.
Exactly. It's just got Monday, man. It's a year on traveling. He's away. He's got home field advantage. So I get that. It's actually fairly spectacular here in Chattanooga. It was like 65 and sunny yesterday. Played a little cornhole in the backyard. Watched a little bit of football. We also didn't do the no travel this year, which, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not, I'm all about not traveling, generally speaking. So
here we go. It's just starting.
I mean, it is.
Everybody's like, that wasn't bad last year.
You know what? It's not. I mean, there's positives and negatives to it all. We usually head down to Allie's parents' house like the day before Thanksgiving, and then we do the Thanksgiving morning there. And then we eat a lot, and then we leave early and drive to our family and do that. And then we stay overnight. It's just a lot of eating and a lot of driving. It's just like, isn't that a lot of time to socialize and relax and do what you want? So we didn't travel at all, and we actually had some of our good friends come up from Florida. They have two little girls that are somewhat close to Hayden's age, so we get like a free babysitter for 4 days, and they're hanging out at the house, and we're just enjoying ourselves and relaxing and not doing much. We made food and ate most of it, and I had two solid pieces of chess pie yesterday, which I've come to understand is a very southern thing that most states don't actually have any idea what chess pie is, but it's basically butter and sugar. Okay, that's really all you need to know. Crystallized, and it's outstanding. And it's local, the Charlie's Barbecue, which is down the street here from the Hub, made it along with a couple other of our Thanksgiving goodnesses, but it was absolutely fantastic. I did not hold back, and that's okay. I think what you're supposed to do. But we hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and whether you traveled or stayed home, or you stayed in just the immediate family, or you went to visit people, we hope you enjoyed yourself. You had safe travels, and you enjoyed your week. I know we've been bouncing around here a lot the last few weeks. We're looking forward to some downtime here before Christmas, but hey, it's your first time. You're tuning in. You're getting ready for 2021. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe, so we appreciate you tuning in. Mike and I are both coaches and athletes ourselves. Been doing it myself coaching for 15 years. Mike has been participating in triathlons and for 7 to 8 years, and we've been best friends for 8. Doing the podcast for 4. We have 428 passed in the archive. So we usually come to you twice a week for the most part, Mondays and Thursdays. But this week's been a little bit different with some traveling and different things. So, but we keep the consistency alive with twice a week. Neither one of us are professionals. Neither one of us are experts. We are on the other hand, we are heavily experienced in life and in training and in triathlon, and oftentimes we'll use that experience and what we're going through personally as both coaches and athletes to drive the topics for the day. Sometimes we'll go into our closed Facebook group, which if you want to be a part of that, you can obviously search on Facebook, Crushing Iron Group, answer one simple question, we'll let you in. Sometimes we'll let the people in there drive it. But for the most part, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what's going on with our lives, both on the training front and the life front, and see what we have for today. We have no sponsors, we have no ads, we have one agenda to hopefully help keep you happy and healthy in your endurance training journey.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, we didn't travel either. We just stayed at the house yesterday. We were going to go across town, which is about an 8-minute drive.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But we didn't get to go over to eat at Aunt Nancy's, and but they did drive up and drop off our food on the curb. And we got to eat, but we didn't overeat. And I think that might have been part of the reason, because we didn't have it all in front of us. So, but no, to the point I made earlier, I really do feel it though. I kind of feel like sometimes when I get up here and I come away, and you get away for like 10 days and you start to feel that itch. I've been feeling it, and I think this kind of cemented it for me. I'm ready to kind of get back in, and it's kind of a weird time of the year because most people are probably just trying to hold on for dear life in their training, but I'm feeling like I'm going to spin it over and get things going a little bit.
Listen, I've got quite a few more training plans here for the next week, but this is like, I think a lot of people take this time of year to, I think some of us recharge physically for no reason, because I mean, if you look back on a lot of athletes training, like a lot of people don't really need that much of a recharge. Like I think it's also like the time of year, like the season itself, like it's cold pretty much everywhere, and so that kind of puts us in this like hibernation mode. We're like, it's time to just settle down and probably fatten up a little bit and relax ourselves. But for a lot of us, like even for me, like if I was like this last week, I've done nothing. Like I swam once. I got on the bike on Wednesday and then hopped off, and I was just like, I was kind of reviewing training, and I was thinking like, yeah, it's probably a good time for some. I was like, wait a minute. I mean, I really only picked up the season in like August. I really haven't done that much, So
Yeah.
do you really need this like huge downtime? Like, but I do think, and this is something that I'm kind of going through with our athletes right now, is that, and I think it's something that a lot of coaches have kind of had to be hyper aware of this year compared to previous years, is that in previous years and in previous training cycles with athletes, like you have these set in stone periods of time and these set training cycles that you kind of move through with relatively little to no adjustment, hopefully if needed, as long as the athlete stays healthy. But this year, it's been anything but consistent. And so you've had I've had multiple athletes go through really just like tremendous builds for races that never happened. And so like for me, like something I've always done for athletes, because I think, and I did this with you as well, the first year you and I worked together, was like I always give athletes like periods of time, weeks or even 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks after big races, to just do whatever the hell you want, just to unplug. Because I think some athletes strive through that, some athletes really struggle because they try to keep track of their fitness score, and they see things declining, and we have this like society that's been like built on the beat yesterday thing, where you always have to do better, and if you're not getting better, not doing something, then you're getting worse, which is also just not the case. And so this year I think it's been actually kind of difficult to manage the overall, not just physical fatigue, but the mental and emotional toll that the year has taken on so many athletes. Because I mean, we're getting into pretty close to like a year into this, the difficulty that has been the COVID and the pandemic and races getting canceled, and you think about it, you're like, God, like has it been that long? And you look back at athletes who have had, again, like building to 70.3, falls off, well, I guess I'll just keep on training, and then I guess I'll just keep on training, and then I guess I'll just keep on training. It's like they don't have these big blocks of time where they can just recharge. And it's a very, very important piece for athletes to wrap their brain around, is because you have these like sometimes hypersensitive, yeah, but like hyper structured, type A athletes are like, I can't take time off. Like it's terrible for you, but actually it's not. The science says it's actually 100% needed. You can't always be on a steady state of build. You have to and you can't look at it as regressing. You have to look at it as allowing your body to soak in fully the amount of time it's given. Because what athletes tend to forget, and what almost sometimes always forget, is that they do this huge, they taper for a week, 2 weeks, for this really big event, and then they do this big event, and then they think, oh, I just need a week off and I get back to the work. But what you actually need recovery time is not just from the one day itself, right? The one day itself it's a huge feat for most people, whether it's a 70.3 or full. You do put your body through the ringer in a lot of physical ways, but then you have to think about the 100 days before it. Especially if you're really, really,
Yeah.
really consistent, you're putting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-week blocks here. They're just really hard, consistent work. Your body needs time to soak that in and to recover. And like that's what this time of year is, I think, is so great for. But on the other hand, like you said, a guy like yourself who maybe hasn't, really hit things really, really, hard in terms of, the last 5 or 6, it's time for you to like get started. Like there's no reason to wait till January to get things rolling. That's to wait till January, February, like everybody else is to, pick things back up again. This is your January. Get things rolling now and not let it wait, because all you're going to do is find yourself, further behind the 8 ball than you might have been if you waited till January.
Yeah, and I think, as a guy that's in his 50s and has done several of these Ironman, and I've talked to a lot of people in my age group, and I think what you're talking about too, like that post-race recovery and stuff like that, it probably, it impacts people in different age groups differently, and the rebounding ability that we have. And like I know that, like I said, I did, I don't know if it was the right thing to do or if it was the best thing for my body or whatever, to do 7 years of straight Ironman training and racing and all that build up and that recovery. And I wonder if like it wasn't in a weird way, kind of the perfect, I don't know, forced chill year, for me, because
Mm-hmm.
again, it gets this like, here we go again, and then it's like at what point do it's like, oh, sometimes you need an extra day off at my age or whatever. And I think if you don't take those for a long time, those build into, so who knows, it's just one of those things where a lot of it's been mental for me too. And I think that, we joke about my brother doing that, but yeah, that kind of stuff is inspiring. And then you sort of see, and I've actually, with our club program that we have, a lot of people have been kind of staying steady through this week. And this is one of those weeks, right, where it's so easy to just kind of go away. But I'm seeing a lot of, I just felt like running 15 minutes. And I was like, man, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Man, or get into the
exactly.
pool for like 10, 15 minutes swim. It's just like those little things that really take off and add up over time.
It's a great. I mean, I give all of our athletes like choice periods between like Thanksgiving Day and through the end of the weekend, because, it really, really is a great time to, and I think it's, yes, is it a great time to unload your body and kind of free yourself mentally and emotionally of being, having like an applied rigid structure that you're expected to, or you have planned out to hit and maintain, day in and day out, week in and week out. Yes, that's important. But it's also, I think, a really, really important time of year to like further along your ability to get to know yourself as an athlete. And because I think what happens is a lot of times athletes are blinded by their training, whether they're coached or whether they have like a training program they follow, or they just kind of go about, they wake up each day and be like, yeah, I think I'll run 35 minutes today. And so, but what happens is I think sometimes we lose objectivity in understanding who we are and what we really, really need mentally, emotionally, and physically each day, because we have this glaring workout or session or race that's right on the calendar. And we kind of, seeing that, we kind of tell, well, if you'd have woke up and didn't have anything, like, today's probably a good day for a day off. But then you see yourself having something on a schedule and you're like, yeah, I feel pretty good. I think I can do this today. You kind of go through that thought process and the kind of, mental tug of war in your mind of, should I do this? Should I not do this? How hard should I go? How easy should I go? And giving athletes a period of time that allows them to, that actually that empowers them to make good choices with themselves, with their body, with their mind, and free. Because that's one of the biggest things that I think it needs to be understood, I think, from a coaching aspect, or as a coach, when you talk to athletes or you're working with athletes, is that your job isn't to dictate what they do all the time. Your job is to empower them to understand the training and to understand what they're doing, and to empower them to do the best they can within how they feel obviously within the scope of what you're both trying to accomplish together, but it's not a dictatorship. It is a partnership. And in order to really, and I think truly get an athlete to progress in the way that they want to, they have to feel empowered to make these, you know, these minute by minute decisions sometimes, whether it's within a workout or whether it's before a workout, just call today, to not feel like they have to say, hey coach, is it okay if I skip today? Why are you even asking me? Of course it's okay. Like this,
Yeah,
isn't
right.
how this works. Like this, I'm not your boss. Like I am not your president. I am not your dictator. I am not your authority. It's like this is, you're a grown adult. You tell yourself. It's like, and like it's like, hey, is it okay if I go to the bathroom? No, it's not. Just go wet yourself. Like you actually, it's not okay to go. Yes, it's okay to go to use the restroom. Like these are like obvious questions. Like we like should be able to answer ourselves. And athletes need to feel empowered to make these, not in fear that they're disappointing someone, but that they're actually affirming that what they know about themselves is true, and that they know their bodies better than anybody else is ever going to know it. That's just how it's always going to be. So with training, with racing, no matter what, you're the person that's going to know yourself the best. What a coach's job is to help them get to understand how they can use their body in the best ways, to guide them, to walk with them, to push them in a positive directions, to get them to understand how to load their body appropriately, and then to end up not doing it themselves, but really like spearheading the direction of where you're supposed to go, because they are that in tune with their body. And so if you give athletes like this period of time that's flexible, that where you're like, I literally just wrote this in like before we hopped on the podcast. It was like in kind of like a block for athletes to like look through the next 3 weeks. It's like, if you wake up and you want to do a session, do the session. If you wake up and you think, you know what, I think I'd rather put on some hot tea and go walk my dog, then put on some hot tea and go walk your dog. Both of those are considered victories. The reason being is because you're doing what you feel is right. That's going to give you energy, not just for today, which is the biggest obstacle that most athletes have trouble getting over, is they only think about today. They don't think about, I think one of my favorite podcasts we've done is like the Links and the Chain podcast. Everything is connected. What you
Mm-hmm.
do today affects tomorrow. What you do tomorrow affects the next day, and it's all predicated on what you did the previous days. Like that's how it works. It's all connected. Is today going to help me tomorrow or hinder me tomorrow? Is today going to ruin the next 2 or 3 days, or is it going to enhance what I'm able to do in the next 2 or 3 days? And so giving athletes not just to not think about just the next 2 or 3 days, but to think about this period of weeks as, how am I going to propel myself into being ready to go for this next year? And yes, there's still plenty of time to achieve gains and to make progress for this year. Sure, like I get that. I'm all about it. I'm all about always trying to improve. But at the same time, like, especially like this year as a coach, like reading and listening and talking to so many athletes and the obstacles and the struggles that they've had this year with the economy, with the election, with their kids, with being sick, or just like the overall anxiety and enhanced depression that I think so many of athletes have struggled with this year. Like the year has taken its toll, and it's been more so an mental and emotional toll than ever for
Oh
so
yeah.
many people. And that's why it's so, you can only burn the wick so long before it burns out. And you hear that a lot with athletes, like, I'm just burnt out. Yeah, I'm just burnt out. Rarely ever should it be a physical burnout, because you mentally and emotionally, before you even get to that point, because you're the brain behind the program, like you should be able to head that off and say, it's time for a break. And which is like, sometimes the hardest thing to tell an athlete is like, hey, let's take some time, relax. And because their first thought is, oh, I don't want to relax, I got to get better. And you're like, no, you need to relax, you need to take some time, when really the inside the athlete is kind of exhaling like, oh, you're right. Okay, thank you for telling me what I really already knew, which is also like one of my favorite like text conversations with athletes. They'll text me like, hey coach, I'm pretty sure I already know the right answer, but I feel like I have to ask you anyway. I'm like, yes, the answer is yes. The answer, whatever you think, the answer is yes. Because they can make it. It's nice to hear that you're right, and that, but ultimately you should know that in making those decisions. As the longer you work with athletes, and the better they do at understanding this and making their own decisions, the better they become, because they become kind of the champion of their own training process, which is exactly how you want it to, because it puts them in a positive and kind of in charge way of not being in fear of what will happen, but actually in an empowering position to make it happen.
Yeah, and that's what I've been kind of instilling, I think, with the the new club members that are all coming in, because they're all various, skill levels, ages, experience, the whole thing. And, we're putting in, and I know a lot of listeners are out there probably finding plans on the internet somewhere, and they're kind of putting them in. And then, for some reason we flip this switch and be like, that's exactly the plan for me. That's the thing. So in the last 2 months, we've been doing kind of a maintenance plan for a lot of these people. And it's just one of those things where we try to be as accurate as possible, but we don't know them yet. So I'm spending a lot of time getting to know them through comments and figuring out through questionnaires and things like that who they are and what they really want to do. And as we go into the 2021, which is the real club program where we design a workout year for you and hopefully take a lot of stress out of it, and hopefully kind of nail you down as far as what you want to do and where you want to go. But even in that, if you're not constantly on top of things, it's like it's got to be an athlete's decision. And I like what you said about being empowered to make good choices, because that is what it comes down to in my mind, like on a daily basis. Like some of the athletes in the club, I keep telling them, it's like, hey, if you see a workout and it's a 30-minute run or something like that, but you feel like you're loving running right now and you want to go 50 minutes or 45 or an hour or whatever it is, make that call, but make it within reason. It's like I just say the one thing to do is just keep the integrity of the plan and keep the recovery, top of mind, because that's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, if I don't, if I've got an injury and my arm hurts or whatever, I don't want to swim today, then that's fine, but just do what you got to do. And I think that's it's a huge underestimated part of even working with you. You know how I am. Some days it's like, this ain't me, but I can do part of it or whatever. It's like, I don't know. There's always those decisions that we have to make, and I think that's a big part of everything. Unless you're just like one-on-one coaching, like you do with most athletes, and you're right in there every day and feeling them out. You can kind of help them make the next decision. But a lot of times athletes are on their own, and they have to sort of embrace that decision-making process and trust their body and trust that, because like you said, nobody knows them as well as they know themselves. So it's like they're the boss of you, you're the boss of you, kind of thing. So
yeah, and it is, and like I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have when they explore getting into coaching or they get a coach, is that it's, I have to do exactly what you're saying or I'm not being a good athlete. Like that's not. Let me rephrase. That may how be. I think what happens is you have athletes that most of the athletes that we always work with are they're grown adults, they're professionals, whatever, and they've had coaching experiences from middle school, high school, even college, where they've had really really bad coaching experiences, where they've had coaches that have been like, it's total dictatorship, like you see, like you feel like Bobby Knight or something like that, like envisioning them like this my way or the highway, and it's like that's not how coaching is when you talk about triathlon coaching, or at least it shouldn't be. Like it shouldn't be like like a dictatorship, like you do what I do, if you don't, you're letting me down. Like like that's not how any of it is like supposed to work at all. It's supposed to be a relationship, it's supposed to be a partnership, and that also goes with like being honest and open and communicating about how you feel and what you're doing. But also like one of the biggest, I think, areas that a coach can implore their athletes to kind of do like some self introspection on is like making sure that your athletes find a way, or at least work on a way, to show themselves grace, to show them and to allow them to see that it is okay to miss workouts. It is okay to take it easy when the workout says otherwise. It is okay to skip a workout because you're tired and want to go to bed. It is okay to move a bike session to another day because you'd rather watch your son play basketball. Like those aren't just acceptable, those are encouraged. And that is something that I think every single athlete should hear, whether they're coached or uncoached, whether they have been participating in sport or not, is that those are like, I mean, it's especially with newer athletes that I work with, I have to kind of get on to them like, what do you mean is this okay? Like this is normal, common sense things that you should feel are not just things that you should have to ask me, but things that I should be okay with no matter what, even if I have a plan there, that you ultimately know yourself and you know your life and you know as an athlete and as an adult what is okay, because of what the only mistake you can make in a moment that will wreck you, that will ruin a plan, is to like go out and run like 30 miles. Everything else, everything that we do is done in pencil. The training that's put in for our athletes week in and week out is done in pencil. It can be adjusted, it can be altered, it can be done short, it can be done. Because what happened is, well, the next day it can be adjusted, the next week can be adjusted. But what cannot be adjusted is when an athlete buries himself in the ground because they feel like they have to impress their coach, they have to meet their coach's standard of expectations, and they end up burning the match so hard and digging their hole so deep that they end up writing the workout in permanent marker. And then it can't be undone. Then it takes days or maybe even weeks to dig themselves out of this hole. Like, there is this, again, like this time of year is so good to go to just not physically recharge, but mentally and emotionally recharge, not just for goals, not just for what do you want to do next year, but look at like, how did you treat yourself this year? Were you good to yourself? Were you good to your body? Did you treat yourself the way you should? Like, not just in terms of like eating right and, training right, but in like, how do you talk to yourself? Like, are you always beating yourself up? Are you ever good enough? Like, are you, do you talk, down to yourself in training? Like, these are all things that are incredibly important when you talk to like how you're in, how you're imploring athletes to make positive changes, not just in what they do physically, but what they do with their life. And like, in training is like a very, very small part of athletes' life. Like, one of my favorite, like, this is a great time of year for coaches because it's the end of the year and like, you've had the success. But even like, yesterday, Thanksgiving, like, it was, yes, do I love when athletes get to go out and rip it and like have these like, really amazing 5K, 10Ks, half marathons, these great results? Yeah, that's great because that's what ultimately the athlete wants. But as a another human being, like, the best compliments we ever get, that you and I both get, are like, hey man, you've really helped me in more ways than just in training, with life, with being a better spouse, with being a better professional, with just, I really appreciate what you guys do for me as a person. Like, that is what coaching is empowering people to use training as a way to get better at life, because that is what we should be doing anyway, is we should be working hard. And you can't get better at life 24/7 with a, this super structure and this super rigid routine of always getting better without any downtime, right? It's like we always have to have some period of downtime. And it's the people and it's the professionals and it's the athletes that choose to use that downtime really truly for what it's worth, right? It's like when you people say like, oh well, they talk about like the 4-hour workday or whatever. It's like, or only working 4 days a week. And you're like, can people do that? Well, 100%. Because if you focus enough, then a lot of people probably can get all the work they want to get done in 4 hours, right? Not everybody, but in certain jobs, and like the gist of the whole, I guess, the approach is that, like, if you really want to focus and use your time management, then you can get as much done as you possibly want to in 4 hours and you could in 7. But instead of what you do is you're kind of, I've got 7 hours, so I think I'll work for a little bit, then I'll play on Facebook for a little bit, then I'll probably do things I shouldn't do a little bit that aren't really, high priority for what I need to get done today. And you end up kind of getting a couple things done, but not everything. And just like, I'll do them tomorrow. But if you have this like really focused and energized, methodical way of moving through things, not just the progress and the process and like getting better, but also the rest and the recovery, then you're going to see gains that are bigger and better the next week or the next training cycle, because you've put you should put just as much focus on your rest and recovery as you do your training. And that is something that athletes ignore totally all the time. And the same thing goes for these periods of the time of year where relax, enjoy. Like, because if you can't do that now, it's probably going to be forced upon you in March or May or September, when you don't want to take it, because you've pushed the mental and emotional needle so far to one side that it's going to break, and you're going to have to take a break because you just don't want to do it anymore. And so the name of the game is just never getting to that point. And so there has to be periods of time where you are able to relax your mind and your body, so that way you can fend off the opportunities that may arise for you to get to that point.
Yeah. Let me just put this in. I'm going to try and put it in terms of what I've been thinking about mentally, and because as we know, I think a lot of athletes are in the same boat with this. It's the idea that we've done something, like for me, it's just going to be Ironman for several years in a row. And there's always this thing about, man, I know I can do it. I know I can probably do it in the same range that I've done it, but like there's a couple missing links, right? That you can't, it doesn't feel worth it at some point, or maybe that's not the right term, but like it feels too hard and it's frustrating. And I think the best analogy I can use is what we always talk about, like final exams or something, or like if you're studying the whole time for the whole semester and you kind of go into that exam and you're feeling pretty good about it, it doesn't like wear you out like you would if you just crammed for 3 or 4 straight nights, and stayed up all night and beat yourself up. You can do that, and it's always the option. But the trick, I think, is just staying ahead of it the whole season. You know what I mean? Like in other words, like I feel like a lot of times when I train for the race, it becomes this thing of like I know I got time, I know exactly what I need to do, and I kind of pour it all into that last couple months, and then it gets done, and then it comes back the same. It's like I did okay, I passed the exam, and I may have gotten a B or whatever, but like the whole difference between getting an A and a B sometimes is like that preparation way, way ahead of time. And I think to me, like watching you, for example, and I think this might be how you might feel right now, and tell me if I'm wrong, but like compared to the last time you were training to do Texas 70.3 and you laid it all out there and whatever, but like this time you went out and simulated it and you talked about that last podcast. But I think, and my guess is that you felt much better after that race or after that simulation than you would have going into that last race. And to me, it was all about you being ahead of the curve on the training and mentally getting your rest and the diet part. There's little things like that, where it's like we kind of get trapped in the same thing, and then like towards the late season you start going, oh, here we go again. I know I can do it, it's familiar, but this still doesn't quite feel right to me. And this time you went in, I think that you had a real, I guess, hunger for that race versus sort of ready to get it over vibe. And
Yeah, you're right. I was totally ready. I was ready to roll. I mean, as we kind of went into again more depths on this, like in the podcast we did earlier this week, but yeah, and I think like one of the biggest challenges has been for me. I think it's like it's also obviously why like this is a hard time of year for people with seasonal depression is that like the changing of the seasons and the holidays like signals to you, or at least to me in a lot of ways, like it's over. It's time to wind down. It's time to chill out. It's time to relax. It's time to kick your shoes off and put your PJs on and really just don't do shit for like 6 weeks. Because that's like the vibe you get from like it's like unless you're shopping or doing whatever, like kids are in and out of school and not much is going on and the season and the year is over. But like when you didn't pick up training, like I had until August, it's like really? Do I need like 6 weeks? Like do I need to like just chill out? Like probably not. But it's hard because everything that you're seeing and feeling has been like, if you compare it to like the last, 10, 15 years that I've been in the sport, it always has signaled, yeah, dude, just chill for a bit, right?
Mhm.
Relax, just do things. And so I think it's hard, I think, for athletes that are in your position or even my position or even kind of hit it hard for, 3 or 4 months for a race, like to be like, yeah, do I need a little bit of downtime? Sure. But do I need a ton of it? No. Like, is it a good time of year to relax? You got, holidays and family obligations you may or may not normally have. And, this time of year brings on its other different challenges for other reasons for certain people. And so it's like, I need it, but I don't need the full on of it. Like, and I feel good. I'm like you said, I'm not wrecked. Like like I have been in the past, and a lot of that has to do with like the style that the race didn't happen. Did it, on my own, and I wasn't on the road, and but I feel good. It's like okay, well, I don't want to just lose it all. I need to kind of parlay it into the next phase. But I think I think the cautionary tale of that is well, just because this one block went great and you feel energized doesn't mean you need to step up onto the next pedestal. That means you're going to be training immediately at the same level or harder than you did before, or even more than you did before, because you need to get better, because the last training you did was good, but the next training has to be better. It's not just the how, it's the when, and the why behind it all, and like how you're distributing things and when you do them, that matters. You can't just kind of willy-nilly just ramp things up just because what I don't want to do is be like, oh well, if I saw this kind of success on this amount of hours a week and I feel pretty good at what I'm doing for August, well, then I'll just choose an early season race and I'll just kind of ramp things up now to 16, 17, 18 hours a week. Well, then I'm either going to end up peaking too early or burning out too early, or burning out, at all, which you don't want to do. It's like, you don't want to do that either, because it's all about timing, and you have to just be really flexible with that. And that's also where like understanding and knowing people and knowing your athletes comes in handy, because you have to be able to kind of read between the lines. As I tell a lot of athletes, is that like, I don't ask a lot of questions because athletes lie. People lie and athletes lie. Like, this is what you do. Like, I can handle this much. Can you? Because your training says you can't, because you haven't been able to make time for it. Like, you can tell me all you want to that 14 hours a week sounds good, because to you it sounds good because it makes you sound like you're willing to do all the work and you can get better. But what your life says is you can barely get in 8 to 10. So why don't we just work with 7 to 9, right? And set yourself up for success to where you can feel the benefits of that, instead of trying to like tread water and not hit your mark with 14 hours a week. Like, there's not much success to be had there, except for finding the fewest misses in a week instead of trying to find the most successes in a week. And that just goes for how you plan the year and how you want to move things in a progressional way, like towards what your biggest race is going to be. And I think that is going to be inherently like the greatest challenge, and it's for me as well, for this coming year, is for so many athletes are going to be racing a year that they didn't sign up for. And what I mean by that is, like, they picked races to do in 2020 in 2019 for the most part, based on how they thought 2020 was going to go. And so now people are stuck with their 2019 schedule of mine in 2021 because all the races have been deferred and transferred. And so it's just, and they're going to, or maybe they wanted other races and they signed up for other races this year because they thought races were going to happen. Now they've got like all these kind of races in different spots that don't really make sense, and they're going to have to kind of pick and say, like, I think that's going to be, it really is going to be a huge challenge that you're going to see, and what's going to lead a lot of athletes to success, or not to failure, but lack of as much success as they could have had, is like, is their willingness to say no to a race. Just because you signed up for it in 2019 doesn't mean you have to do it in 2021. It just doesn't. You're a grown adult. If you don't want to if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Yeah, it's not, I don't look at it as wasting money. You look at it as what else you might waste or lose out on by actually doing it. Because most races aren't a waste, right? If you think about the cost that's associated with, doing a 70.3, it's like $400. Well, for most people, that you got to travel, and you got to do lodging, and you got to pay for gas and whatever else you might buy, and it's easy a $450-$500 expense. So if you've already paid that, year and a half ago, you're not going to spend it this year, then I call it a wash, right? It's like you're not going to save any money, but you're not going to spend any more money. And so the way athletes look at that this coming year, and kind of how they're going to piece together what made sense to them in 2019 from a personal and an athletic standpoint, to what makes sense now for them as a person, where they are with life, what life dictates for them. Are their kids virtual learning? Are they at home? Is their job remote? Or are they traveling? What kind of athlete are they? Have they stuck with it? Are they a better athlete? Are they a worse athlete than they were in 2019 or 2020? Like, they have to answer all these questions, and then look strategically at the year and say, okay, just because I signed up for it doesn't mean I have to, but these are my options. So for a lot of athletes, now you have an even better opportunity, I think, to pick and choose what will allow you the most success this year. And what's probably going to happen is, let's say you have 6 races, and is to say, these 3 to 4 make the most sense because of where they laid out, because of where I am and what I want to accomplish. The other 2 can just go by the wayside. And let me just do this, because what you don't want to do is just, I don't want to say don't want to do, but a lot of athletes probably don't want to do this, is they will just do a bunch of races next year and kind of hover around, not mediocrity, but they'll just kind of hover around the same level of fitness they've always had, because they're not going to be able to to recover and build and peak in a manner that's going to allow them to be really, really successful. They're just going to kind of basically tread water for the whole year, check off all their races, then look at the next year to kind of, rebuild their program and their attack plan in a much more methodical way. So that's going to be a huge challenge for people this year. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking through the next week or two is like, what do I really want to do? What do I want? And then again, that's for athletes, like biggest question is like, what do I want to do? What do I really, really want to do, what I can do, and what's best for me? Like all those questions to ask, you have to ask and answer, and most oftentimes they rarely ever always match, right? It's like, do I want to do this? Sure. But can I? I don't know. And then should I? I'm not sure, right? So you have to like always ask yourself all these questions. You can't ever ask yourself too many. And so again, that's another great thing you can be doing this time of year to kind of set yourself up for success in the next part of the year, or for 2021.
Yeah, and another question is, how do I do it the right way, right? Because that becomes the big thing. A quick story: I was a buddy of ours through the podcast, and we've known him for a couple of years, and he called me on my drive up. We talked for quite a while about this. He's my age group. He's done 25 Ironman, and he called me about coaching him. And he doesn't need me to coach him. He's been on the podium and everything like that. But we had a really great talk about the idea of bouncing back and forth and kind of going through thought processes and figuring things out, because he wants to get better. And he kind of is at a stalemate there, and he really thinks that, listening to how I talk about things, we're kind of on the same page with a lot of thought processes and, again, the age part. But I just think it's really interesting, and it makes a lot of sense, because it's not, always going to be about just like putting out a plan that's going to work for him. It's going to be the stuff between the workouts and the mental approaches to the workouts, to the recovery, like you said. And then, what other things do we need to kind of talk through that we've learned together? And I think that's, people ask is like, well, do you need a coach all the time? And it's like, I think that is the stuff, right? It's like, yeah, no, do you need a coach? I prove, we've had a lot of people prove that they can go out and do Ironman on their own, but are they getting what they need out of it or want out of it? Are they doing it the right way that kind of like kind of builds another level or a layer of success story in their life and their fitness and things like that? And I think a lot of times that's really sort of what it boils down to. I mean, that's the comments that I hear a lot from your athletes, especially, is it's like, they're kind of stuck, and that's the worst place to be, right? It's like, that's what I mean by like, that's one of my biggest fears about going into this next year, is just going through it again and doing the same thing, more or less. And it's like, and that's how I felt when I did Wisconsin the last time. I was like, yeah, okay, that was a fine race, and I should be proud of that. But it just felt like, man, something was missing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You get that feeling. I know a lot of people feel that. It's like, yeah, I did it again. And I did feel great about it, and it felt good and everything, but it just wasn't quite what I was hoping to get out of it. And I don't know a lot of times if I even know exactly what I'm hoping to get out of it. And and that's a whole nother mental exploration we can take in the next podcast.
That's a whole other podcast, man. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll unpack that on the next one. But no, it is. And I think this time of year is when a lot of athletes are kind of thinking through, like, do I want a coach? Do I need a coach? And if I do, then the kind of coach. And it's a huge commitment, for the athlete and the coach, And so I think that, if you're an athlete, like the first thing you can do as an athlete is just think through what you personally need, as a person, as an athlete, and then look back through the year. And I think this year has taught us a lot about, and not everybody needs a coach at all. Some athletes thrive without having one. Some people like just having, a coach to know that they can call on here and there that can help them. Like, I work with quite a few athletes that, like, I kind of guide them in the direction of their plan. I don't do the whole thing, right? And then they're also very experienced, and people who are just getting into the sport, and there's just so much information out there. But the biggest thing is, like, I think, again, like, of all the years we've been participating, at least for you and I that have been doing this for so long, it's like this year has taught us a lot about what we really need and what I think it really can provide as value, and what we both need personally as coaches and as athletes in order to thrive. And a lot of it is, frankly, is connection and community. It's people, and to have someone else because it's been an isolating and lonely year for so many people, and that's been one of the biggest things I've been really happy and proud of this year has been the continuity of our team and the togetherness, and to not be alone, and know there's other people out there that are and not just going through it, but they got your back and that are willing to be there and to talk through things or to help you or to see and give a friendly smile and do whatever. And like that's the important stuff. Is it's there's that quote, it's like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think a lot of athletes are obsessed with getting far or going fast. And I get what you're gonna say. Like, yeah, the goal is to get faster, but yeah, it's you want to get from point A to point B as quickly as you can. But then after they get to point B, then what? Then it's the same. And then a lot of athletes get stuck at point B for forever. They maybe get to C, versus some athletes might not get to point B as quickly, but they end up getting to D, E, and F, and Z a lot quicker, or just in general because the other person never made it past C. And so I think that's something that everyone, thinks through each year is like, what do you need? What do you want? And ultimately, just what's best for you, right? It's like, what's best for you as Mike Tarrolly, the athlete, and Mike Tarrolly, the person. Like, that's the biggest thing you can always answer is like, what is generally best for you? And, that's the biggest, I think that's the biggest thing that everyone should ask or spend the next few weeks is like, what did this year teach me that I needed as a person, I need as an athlete, I need as a professional, I need as a partner. What did this year teach me? And then how can I move through this next year and just try to do a better job? It doesn't have to be like, I think we get so obsessed with, losing 100 pounds and, dropping 6 hours and like, let's just start with 5 minutes. It's like, because if I can do 5 minutes, I can probably do 10. And if I can do 10, I can probably do 20. But it's that that incremental. There was a quote that I saw, and this is, I think, probably a good way to end it in terms of looking like how you're training for the rest of the year, or in general should be is, doing things or trying to get there, inch by an inch is a cinch, but trying to get there yard by yard is pretty hard. And I think that if you look at so many. No, it's not mine. I can't take credit for that. No, I mean, I could have, but I'm not going to. No, but I read that and I was like, so freaking right, dude. So freaking right. It's because it is. It's like you just got to get there inch by inch, and you're like, yeah. And that's the biggest thing I think with the way that we approach things and how a lot of athletes do is like, it's all very doable. And I think most people are shocked at how like the training plans and like the weekly stuff they get is like, this is doable. I'm like, yeah. It's supposed to be doable. You're not supposed to break your back. Like, this is supposed to be doable. You're supposed to see small incremental increases and gains that you can consistently do over long periods of time, not trying to reach for the stars overnight. It's like the thing like, oh, they're an overnight success. No, they're not. They probably spent 5,000 nights before this trying to get there. You just never heard of them. And then that's how it is with training and life and so many other things that we try to accomplish in sport. And in all of our endeavors is to just, take it bit by bit, piece by piece, inch by inch, and you're going to get better as long as you have something that's attainable in a manner that can allow you to be consistent.
I'm with it, man.
Are you? I appreciate that.
Inch by inch is a cinch.
Inch by inch is a cinch.
For the coffee.
This podcast is... Exactly right. Inch by inch is a cinch within a couple extra shots of espresso. As always, we appreciate you. Appreciate our listeners. We hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving and enjoyed yourself. Enjoy the rest of your weekend as well. Cuddle up on the couch, watch a little bit of football, relax, get ready to get back to work next week. If you have any questions, comments about anything or everything, reach out to Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com, or if you need anything directly from me, you can always reach out to me, C26Coach@gmail.com. If you'd like to visit our website, it is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, community, and our club membership that'll outline your entire. That is at C26triathlon.com.
Yeah, just go to the coaching tab and pull down to the club drop down. And check that out. And if you got any questions about the club programs, just email me, crushingiron@gmail.com. And I guess that wraps up the post-Thanksgiving cast.
It does. I'm going to go home and eat some leftovers.
Good for you, man. All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, man.